Good evening.
That was good. That was good.
Hi, everyone. We're going to get started. Yeah. Okay.
Guys, real quick. I feel like when the mayors come up, we sort of have to shimmy out of the way, right? So maybe, are we going back onto our chairs? Right? Okay.
Just here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 24th Annual Twin Cities Cardozo Society Dinner. I'm Rona Schwade, tonight's dinner co-chair, along with my co-chairs, Shira Shapiro and Jake Levine. Before jumping into tonight's program, we want to take a moment to announce tonight's raffle winners. Exciting. Congratulations to John Schoenwetter, Carla Kruger, and Jesse Keybort. Jesse's won the Jester gift certificate, John has won the jewelry gift certificate, and Carla has won the craft gift certificate. Please stop by staff table 43 to claim your prize at the end of the evening. And thank you for supporting the federations. Tonight, mazel tovs are also in order for Justin Perl and Jim Stein, this year's Sydney Barrows Lifetime Commitment Award honorees. Yashir Koach as well to my co-chair and friend and co-chair extraordinaire, Jake Levine, on being the Arthur T. Pfeffer Memorial Award honoree. We are thrilled to honor these incredible community members tonight, and you'll hear more from and about them later. Welcome, everyone.
Good evening. Every year, this event is an amazing opportunity for members of the Twin Cities Cardozo Society and our colleagues and friends to gather together and celebrate our community, especially individuals like Justin, Jim, and Jake. But we would be remiss not to mention that despite 584 days having passed since the attacks on October 7th, dozens of hostages, including 4 American citizens, have yet to come home. And we are incredibly thankful that Idan Alexander returned home yesterday. The yellow flowers here tonight remind all of us to keep them and their families front and center until they are all home. Please join us in a brief moment of silence and reflection. Thank you.
Before we get to our first guest, we have a few thank yous. Please take a look at your program to see the Cardozo Society Steering Committee members and chairs, David Kirko and Melissa Weiner. These people, along with the professionals at the St. Paul and Minneapolis Federations, work very hard to make this event and the entire year of Cardozo programming a success. We'd also like to acknowledge and thank tonight's various sponsors, whose partnership supports the Jewish community both inside and outside the legal community. Thomson Reuters has been the Cardozo Dinner's premier sponsor for over 20 years, and its commitment to partner with the federations has made it possible for us to offer quality programs. Frederickson and Byron is also a premier sponsor of tonight's dinner. Thank you to Frederickson for its generous support of the Cardozo Society and its uplifting of Jewish attorneys through its Tzedakah group. We also want to thank tonight's Platinum Dinner sponsors, Stinson, Maslin, DLA Piper, Robbins Kaplan, Jones Day, and Anthony Oslin, Luagi, Dresden, and Boylan. Our Platinum corporate partner, Sears Imported Autos, has been an active participant in the business and charitable communities of Minneapolis for over 50 years. with a special thank you to Don Davidson and Ruth Maynard. In addition, we are delighted to welcome our gold corporate partners, Eisner Amper and Affluence Financial, our silver partner, Brembert Bank, and our bronze partner, Huntington Bank. And finally, thank you to our corporate partners, table sponsors in each of the University of Minnesota, University of St. Thomas, and Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law for your support. Together, we have set records for the number of sponsors and contributions made at this annual dinner. Your contributions have an incredible impact and make all of this possible.
We'd also like to pause and warmly welcome all of the elected and appointed officials, judges, clergy, bar association chairs, and executive directors of community organizations here tonight. We are grateful for your support and your hard work on behalf of all of our communities. Please stand and let us recognize you. Among our guests tonight are also the Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, and the Mayor of St. Paul, Melvin Carter. Who we are excited to have here with us. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Fry and Mayor Carter to the stage.
Good evening, Cardozo Society. How you doing? To all of the extraordinary people of the Jewish Federation of Greater Minneapolis, you are extraordinary, you are brilliant. I am proud to call you friends. And then also to the St. Paul Jewish Federation, you guys are all right. When I was invited to come up here and provide a welcome to the city of Minneapolis, Melissa Weiner said to me, well, this really is a Twin Cities event. There is so much more that unites us than divides us. The cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul share so much. It makes sense that in addition to having the mayor of Minneapolis, we should also have Mayor Carter from St. Paul. And I said, Melissa, that is the most ridiculous thing that I have ever heard in my life. We are at a point right now where we truly do need to be united. And I'm not just talking about the jokes of a Minneapolis and St. Paul rivalry. I'm talking about the people that stand up for democracy. I'm talking about the lawyers that argue and have the courage to debate, have the courage to push back on an idea, recognizing that the opposite of extremism is not the opposite extreme. The opposite of extremism is good, thoughtful governance and debate where you listen to data, you trust experts, and you love your collective cities more than you love your ideology. It's also a time, and I feel that it's essential that I say this right now, to be proud to be a Jew. To stand up, to kick your shoulders back, to stand as tall as you possibly can and recognize that it's a heritage, a culture, an ethnicity of brilliant and extraordinary people, of teachers, of actors, of lawyers and doctors, of lawyers, and a whole host of other professions, too, that are seldom represented in this room because, as I mentioned to Mayor Carter, by the way, there were probably 4 different people that mentioned, well, you should brief Mayor Carter before he comes here. And I briefed Mayor Carter. I said, we have Jews that are lawyers, and we have lawyers that are Jews.
That's right.
And right now, and this may be the first time that anybody has said this in the history of the world, but I do believe that we need more Jewish lawyers. Because so many times right now we feel stuck in an argument of nuance, and an argument of nuance is oftentimes the truth, because we do live in times that require us to have these necessary debates, to operate in the difficult, to understand that things are gray. You know, you can support a state of Israel adamantly and vehemently oppose a Netanyahu administration. You can have calls for returns of the hostages and also mourn the death of innocent civilians. Those things are not contradictory. In fact, we can hold two truths in our hearts at the same time. We're lawyers. We're Jews. This is what we do. And especially in the Cardozo society that values that kind of vigorous debate that is based in truth, it is more essential right now than ever. And so to be here amongst people that are operating in that very difficult space as Jews and as lawyers, I appreciate you, I love you. To operate in a space where these are the people that have the courage to stand up, to tell their own side what they don't necessarily want to hear. And where there may be only a few of us in the room, we'll have 15 different opinions. That's a good thing, especially right now. And I know that the Cardozo Society has been pushing for that every step of the way. And so in the spirit of collaboration, in the spirit of compromise, in the spirit of bringing different peoples, different ethnicities, different backgrounds together, let us recognize the biggest divide of all, which is, of course, between Minneapolis and St. Paul. And let's give a gigantic Cardozo round of applause and welcome to Mayor Melvin Carter of St. Paul.
Good to see you, sir. Well, thank you very much. That was kind of you, Mr. Fry. Mayor Fry. You know, when he was saying kind things about me early on, some of you may have been fooled. I knew a punchline was coming. But listen, that great divide that you're talking about, one side of the river to the other, you know, I always tell folks I'm only interested in keeping the St. Paul side of the Mississippi River clean. And people say, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
No.
It doesn't make any sense at all. So, wherever you live, St. Paul, Minneapolis, one of the suburbs, I think we can all agree on one thing. Your grandparents probably lived in St. Paul. In full disclosure, I just left Chris Coleman a little bit earlier, and he told me that would work in this group. We're in a strange time. Mayor Fry, as you were talking about the duality of being able to love a country deeply and yet disagree profoundly with what the leader of that country was doing at the time, I was able to imagine what that would feel like. We're in a profound time. A time when simple things, like our simple ability to point at something and say, that's true, that's fact, even that is under attack. A simple time when some of the freedoms, some of the liberties that we've grown to take for granted, that we've grown to think were just sewn into the fabric by now, are under attack. Mayor Fry and I right now are getting letters from our own federal government to tell us that if we refuse to allow our police officers to be deputized as immigration agents, if we continue our focus on being good stewards of our planet, if we do anything that anyone might label as DEI, they will be cut off from all of our federal funding. Those are dollars that we use to hire police officers. Those are dollars that we use to offer youth sports, to make sure that families don't have to drink lead in their water. That's an attack. It's an attack on the good old-fashioned principle that Paul Wellstone used to tell us, that when we all do better, we all do better. It's an attack on our ability to look at each other across the room and see someone who may speak a different language, who may practice a different culture, who may eat different foods on different holidays, and think that's a good thing for our community. If you're in this room, it means your identity is under attack every day. I was able to imagine what that would feel like too. Mayor Fry introduced me to someone coming in and said that, and was kind enough to inform me that the person we were talking to was a Jew and a lawyer, and then informed them that I'm a mayor and black, which I was trying to hold as a surprise. So thanks for that.
You're welcome.
I'm proud to live in a space where we understand that an attack against a synagogue is an attack against a black church.
That's right.
That an attack against the mosque is an attack against a synagogue, because we really are all in this together.
That's right.
And so many things are under attack. And who do we have to look for to help us? Well, when the federal government came and started threatening that funding, we went to court. We looked to members of the legal profession. And maybe that's why the legal profession is under attack as well. Because that ability to fight for what's true, what's objectively fact, that ability to make sure that there's always someone defending someone who doesn't have a White House, doesn't have an office, doesn't have an impressive card, that ability to keep us grounded and rooted in the basic principles of fairness that underlie at least the documentation that this country was founded upon, if not all of its practices. That's work that you all carry every day. And you live at the intersection of an identity being under attack and a profession being under attack. But let me preach to the choir for a moment. And I directed my church choir at my black church for the whole time I was on the city council. And so I can tell you that choirs can be preached to sometimes too. But if you're in this room, if you're in this profession, if you're in this identity, you've come through adversity before. You've come through trials before. And you've come out on the other side of it before. I have an aunt who always tells anybody who's unemployed, hey, you were looking for a job when you found the last one. We were fighting through adversity when we came out on the other side of the last one. And my dream for us, my challenge for us, my desire for us, my plea for us is, in the face of all of the hate that we encounter every single day, don't give way to hating. Mayor Fry said the opposite of extremism isn't the other extreme. The opposite of hate isn't hating back. Martin Luther King said it. Hate can't overcome hate. Only love can do that. It's hard to do. But he also said that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. I'm going to show you what my self-esteem is like by amending something that Martin Luther King said. The arc doesn't bend itself. We bend it. Regular people bend it. Oftentimes, with a little bit of help from a lawyer. And so I want to thank you all for the work that you do. I want to thank you all for the invitation to be here tonight. I want to say congratulations to the awardees tonight. The one who got this, Justin Perl, who has this, Minneapolis proclamation. And of course, Jim, who has this beautiful St. Paul proclamation to my left. Keep on fighting, keep on doing the work, keep on staying in the trenches, keep on coming together, because we know that we truly are stronger together, and we truly do all do better when we all do better. Thank you so much and have a great night. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Fry and Mayor Carter. The Twin Cities Cardozo Society brings the Jewish legal community together to advance the philanthropic mission of the Minneapolis and St. Paul Jewish Federations to ensure the security and vitality of the Jewish people. With more information on the Federation's important role in our community and the impact Federation has here in the Twin Cities, in Israel, and overseas, please welcome Jim Cohen, the Minneapolis Jewish Federation CEO, and Tom Frischberg, the St. Paul Jewish Federation's board chair.
Yeah, in these very short prepared remarks, I thank the staff that made all of this possible, but now I'm kind of annoyed, and that's because I'm going to insist that next year we go before Mayor Fry and Mayor Carter, because that cannot be beat. Who knew that they had that kind of comedic timing? So thank you both so much. It is a pleasure to join such a distinguished group at this year's Cardozo Society dinner. Thank you, Mayor Fry and Mayor Carter, not only for your humorous banter, but for your unwavering support of the Twin Cities Jewish community. And let me just say that I'm very proud after those remarks to be a Jewish Minneapolitan tonight. So thank you very much to both of the mayors. Mazel tov to tonight's honorees, Justin Perl, Jim Stein, and Jake Levine. Thank you to our incredible staff who put literally hundreds of hours into this event, with a special shout out to Evan Pomish and Sil Stuhlschaft, who have worked tirelessly to make this event such a success. At events like this, I often say we've got the best team in the business, so let's give them a round of applause. And thank you to the Cardozo dinner chairs, Shira, Jake, and Rona, an incredible job. Look at this room. Thank you so much for everything you did. Tonight, we celebrate not only legal excellence, but also the shared values that bind us: justice, leadership, collective responsibility, and a deep commitment to a strong and vibrant Jewish community.
For the Minneapolis and St. Paul Jewish Federations, these values guide our daily work. We pursue justice by standing with the vulnerable, strengthening Jewish identity in our youth, and helping Jews in Israel and around the world. We strengthen community by investing in Jewish life, education, and security so that every Jew not only feels safe, but is provided opportunities to be proud, productive, and proactive. Our work is only possible because people like you give generously, thoughtfully, and with purpose. Tonight, we ask you to carry these values forward. Your support is what keeps this community strong. It's how we honor our past, meet today's challenges, and build the future we so desperately want for the generations to come.
It's our pleasure now to introduce someone who has not only served our nation with distinction, but whose roots in our Jewish community run deep. Dean Phillips comes from a family whose generosity and commitment to Jewish life here in the Twin Cities and beyond has helped shape the work of Federation for generations. In everything he does, he brings the same values his family has long championed: integrity, compassion, and a deep sense of responsibility to others. Please join us in welcoming the Honorable Dean Phillips.
Good evening, everybody. I am humbled to be in front of such an extraordinary collection of defenders of democracy, of those who believe in the rule of law and in the pursuit of justice. And I've never, please give yourselves a round of applause, because it has been quite a century over the past few years, and God knows we need all of you more than ever. And that's not a political statement. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I care about your principles. And I would ask that all of you assess people, your neighbors, your friends, people on TV, people in Washington, people throughout this country, based on principle, not politics. And I want to extend heartfelt congratulations to our awardees this year, the Barrows Award winners, Justin Perl and Jim Stein, and this year's Peffer Award winner, Jake Levine, who I'm going to introduce momentarily. Congratulations, everybody. I was just 6 months old in July of 1969 when my father, Captain Artie Peffer, was killed in Vietnam at the age of 26, fighting in a war in which he may not have believed, but for a country in which he believed very, very deeply. And though fate would prevent us from knowing each other as father and son, I am so grateful that his spirit and the stories live on through this award and through so many of you. And those of you who also knew my father, Eddie Phillips, will attest to my extraordinary fortune, my good fortune, of having the very best blessings in paternal nature and nurture. And I'm grateful to both of my dads. Born in 1943, Artie and my Uncle Howard, who is here tonight with my Aunt Ina, were raised by my grandmother Ruth, who made ends meet by selling boys' suits at Kohl's department store in the Highland Village. And as I look around, I do see a few of you still sporting your suits. Filled with big dreams, but modest resources, Artie excelled on the baseball diamond and the hockey rink, unusual, I know, for a Jewish boy, and cruised around St. Paul with his fellow red-vested yeomen. After graduating from St. Paul Central in 1960 and receiving his BA from the University of Minnesota in 1964, it was an Army ROTC scholarship that afforded my dad the opportunity to pursue his JD at the School of Law, where he served as editor of the Minnesota Law Review and was granted membership in the Order of the Coif. Upon graduating magna cum laude in 1967, Artie was hired by the Maslin firm here in Minneapolis and married my mother. Strike that from the record, please. Married my mom, Dee Dee Phillips, who is also here with my adorable and amazing daughter, Daniela, tonight. Married my mom later that summer. But prior to embarking on what promised to be a remarkable legal, civic, and maybe even public service career, although I will tell you I would have counseled my father against it, Artie fulfilled his duty to his country and was deployed to Vietnam as a captain in the Army Corps of Engineers. Now, I've long imagined my father and hundreds of thousands of fellow American soldiers looking up at the sky on July 20th, 1969, in awe, as their fellow countrymen took that giant leap for mankind as their boots touched the surface of the moon, only to look down at their boots with disdain in Vietnam. And just 5 days later, just 5 days after the moon landing, the most remarkable achievement in American and perhaps human history, Artie and 7 of his fellow soldiers were killed in a helicopter crash into Pleiku, Vietnam, into Dragon Mountain. And when I visited that crash site for the first time just 2 years ago, I was accompanied by friends and by Vietnamese military officials, and I expected to feel a lot of emptiness, a lot of anger, and a whole bunch of grief. But much to my very pleasant surprise, a combination of warm sun, a pine forest that emulated Minnesota as much as any of you could possibly imagine, pine needles on the ground, that smell of a forest that we all love so much. And my Vietnamese hosts, this was the kicker, my Vietnamese hosts' spirit of hospitality and of kindness, of compassion, and perhaps most of all, of forgiveness. And I'll say it again, forgiveness, brought me closer to my father than ever before and inspired me to ensure that his sacrifice and those of 1 million other Americans since our nation's founding would be employed to improve the future for all humankind. So it is in that very hopeful spirit tonight that we celebrate Artie's legacy by honoring Jake Levine, an extraordinary young attorney with similar ambitions and a passion for service and the very same potential to make a meaningful mark on this community, on this country, and on our world for many years to come. A graduate of the University of Minnesota who earned his JD cum laude from the University of Wisconsin, for which we forgive you, Jake. Jake is now an associate attorney with Frederickson and Byron's Mergers and Acquisitions Group, representing private and public companies in a wide array of business transactions, and is a member of the firm's Inclusion and Diversity Committee. Prior to joining Frederickson, Jake served as a judicial intern to Chief Justice Shirley Abramson of the Wisconsin Supreme Court and worked as a student attorney for the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic in Madison, where he drafted contracts and provided transactional services to early-stage entrepreneurs and startups. Known as a great listener and an active volunteer, Jake serves as director of the Jewish Historical Society of the Upper Midwest, director and treasurer of Minnesota Hillel, secretary, treasurer, and vice chair of the Hennepin Bar Association's New Lawyers section, and a member of the Cardozo Society Steering Committee, and co-chair of this very dinner. And I do have to say, Jake, I was going to do this offline, but I was trying to get some food and they ran out of silverware. But I did what every Minnesota politician lacking silverware does. I borrowed a comb. Now, come on. If you can't inject a little humor. Anyway, Jake's list of recognitions is remarkable for an attorney of any age, but one that stands out to me personally, and I think to all of you, will be the fact that he earned the Cheryl Weston Outstanding Mensch Award. That's right, the Outstanding Mensch Award from the University of Wisconsin Jewish Law Students Association. Our 2025 Artie Peffer Award winner is such a good guy that Mensch literally needed a modifier. So on behalf of my mother, Dee Dee Phillips, my uncle Howard and Aunt Ina, my amazing daughter, Daniela, my cousin, Scott Johnson, and the wonderful, and when I say wonderful, all the people whose names and faces you may not see tonight, who put on this event and toil so hard on behalf of all of us in this community, and the Peffer Award Committee. I just want to say thank you, heartfelt gratitude to all of you. I have walked in many of your footsteps. You have been my models. I hope we, all of us in this room, can do so for the next generation and make this world a better place. I certainly know that Jake will. So ladies and gentlemen, Jake Levine, our awardee.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Representative Phillips, and thank you to the Cardozo Society for this tremendous recognition. Representative Phillips, to be associated with your father's namesake award and what he and your family stand for is an honor that I will strive to earn every single day. May your father's memory continue to be a blessing and inspiration. To my family, thank you for your belief, your unwavering love, and for always showing up. And to my Frederickson colleagues, thank you for developing me into a capable, ethical, and thoughtful attorney, and for showing up for Jewish community. It means a lot to everyone here. I am truly humbled by this recognition. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs once wrote that the highest form of leadership is teaching. Power begets followers, but teaching creates leaders. The great rabbi also wrote that at the heart of Judaism are three beliefs about leadership. 1, we are free. 2, we are responsible. And 3, together we can change the world. Teaching gives life to Lador Vador. Teaching is the key to the Jewish people's guide to forever. And the Jewish people and leaders who are developed by this teaching are responsible for leading us to a more just and peaceful future. We have not persisted as a people for thousands of years to simply be. Our responsibility is to change the world for the better, for all children, for all people, and for all time. Minnesota Hillel, Alpha Epsilon Pi, and Chabad on Campus, each organizations that I've had the pleasure to serve and learn from, tether students to their Jewish stories and traditions, instill beliefs in themselves and what they may achieve in their collegiate careers and beyond, and in quantitative terms, produce hundreds of Jewish leaders every single year. The impact on Jewish Forever is tremendous. I am inspired by these organizations, the Jewish Federations, the Cardozo Society, and so many other organizations in town like the Jewish Historical Society of the Upper Midwest that do not simply preserve and educate so that the Jewish people may continue to survive, but do so that the Jewish people may continue to lead as change makers. As a lawyer and as a lay leader, I've been blessed with opportunity and mentors who push me toward my potential. I have a loving family that has supported me through thick and thin, and I have a partner in life who pushes me intellectually, spiritually, and as a parent in our young family. Not everyone is so lucky, though. My opportunity has given me freedom, and with that freedom, I choose every day to dedicate time to teaching and mentoring folks in my legal practice through community service and providing pro bono legal services to a variety of folks, including refugees, small business owners, members of the LGBTQ+ community, and folks who just need a listening ear. Sometimes that's all it takes. My intention with that teaching is to lift others into being the best versions of themselves that they can be and to produce ripples that better our world. It is important to put in perspective that, as attorneys, giving a few hours of our time may create a slight inconvenience. But those few hours for those we help may completely save their world. Remember, the cornerstone of lasting change is not based on power or miracles. We do not remember Moses as Moses the liberator or Moses the miracle worker. We remember Moses as Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher. We each have callings, desires, and passions in the Jewish community and out. I urge you each to take a joyful teacher's mindset to all of your undertakings and generously give. You won't just find it enjoyable, you'll find peace in the security that your impact is forever. Thank you.
Mazel tov to Jake and those beautiful words. I'm Melissa Weiner, and along with David Kirko, we are your co-chairs of the Twin Cities Cardozo Society. This annual event draws 450 community members in support of tonight's honorees and the incredible work of the Cardozo Society. But the Cardozo Society is far more than a gathering of 450. While that number is quite impressive and I think a record for the last several years. So thank you all for being here tonight. Both in the response to the need and the desire for cohesiveness in the wake of October 7th and our strong sense of accountability to ensure our continuity, the Cardozo Society has undertaken several initiatives in the past several years that have truly solidified our presence as an affinity group here in the Twin Cities.
In fact, the Cardozo Society is now an official affinity group of the Minnesota Federal Bar Association and Minnesota State Bar Association, giving us a seat at the critical diversity table where we also belong. Taking seriously our role in contributing to the diversity of the bench and bar, we have also formed a task force to help support judicial candidates through the endorsement process. We are working at the other end of the spectrum as well to increase our support of law students and provide them with networking and leadership opportunities. We regularly offer engaging and timely programs that keep our members informed on pressing issues, legal issues impacting Jews. This year we hosted nationally recognized speakers discussing anti-Semitism on university campuses and hosted Gadi Ezra, the former director of the Office of National Diplomacy, who gave an inspiring and educational talk on Israel's legal challenges during this time of war.
With so many opportunities to get engaged, and we hope to see you all again next year, we hope that you find a way to support our efforts in the Jewish legal community beyond the dinner in the coming year. I would also be remiss and probably yelled at by my Federation colleagues if I didn't remind you that there is an opportunity with a QR code to support the incredible work of this community. Of course, all of this is possible, and the support that we've heard about through the federations and the giving that provides the support for all of our affinity organizations throughout both Minneapolis and St. Paul, through, of course, generous donations. So, if you are compelled to help our community, now is the time that we need it the most. It is now my pleasure to welcome Bob Barrows to present our Sidney Barrows Lifetime Achievement Award recipients.
Good evening. I first want to add my congratulations to Jake on receiving the Peffer Award, and I'm looking forward in about 40 years being able to introduce you as a recipient of the Sidney Barrows Award. I was the chair again this year for the Sidney Barrows Lifetime Commitment Award Selection Committee. Sidney Barrows was my father. The selection committee is a little different than other nominating committees because its members include all of the past recipients of the Sidney Barrows Award. The past recipients decide who it is that is going to join them in this exclusive club. This December would have been my father's 107th birthday, and he's now been gone for 27 years. Because of that, and looking around in this room, I know that most of you never knew him. In fact, some of you were not even alive when he passed away. For that reason, I'll tell you a little bit about him. He was born in Bayonne, New Jersey in 1918. He attended the City College of New York and then Columbia Law School. He was admitted to the bar on December 8, 1941. His first job was supposed to be with Milton Handler. Milton Handler, some of you may know as the antitrust guru. I don't know whether Handler was then with the K. Scholler firm in New York, but Handler was called by somebody from Warner Brothers who asked him for a recommendation of who they should hire. Handler said that the best person he could think of for the job was my father, and he encouraged my father to take the job because he thought the Warner Brothers opportunity was a much better opportunity than what he was offering. Dad told me that when he was with Warner Brothers, his first two cases went to the United States Supreme Court. Unfortunately, he didn't have another case through the rest of his career get there. Because he had not been in practice for 5 years, he had to get special permission then to have his name on the brief. In 1943, he enlisted in the Army and was sent to the University of Michigan Foreign Language School, where he was taught Japanese. While he was in the Army, Warner Brothers continued his salary the entire time. Upon graduation from the Michigan Foreign Language School, he was sent to that hotbed of Japanese activity, Fort Snelling. It was there that he met and married my mother. His commanding officer's wedding present to him in early 1945 was to transfer him from intelligence to counterintelligence because his intelligence unit was about to be shipped out on a pre-invasion of Japan. When the war ended, Dad spent a year in occupation in Japan, and upon discharge from the Army, Warner Brothers wanted him to come back, this time in California. My mother did not want to go to California. She was born and raised in St. Paul. She suggested that her father talk to my father. And my grandfather suggested that Dad go down and talk to Ben and Amos Steinert. As luck would have it, Hy Edelman, who used to work at Leonard Street and Diner, had just left to join a firm which later became the Maslin firm. As a result, there was an opening for my father, and he was hired. You young associates, listen to this. He was hired at the salary of $200 a month, and he continued to practice at Leonard Street and Diner for the rest of his career. Dad worked very hard to balance his professional work, his family, and his community service. Because Leonard Street and Diner then had only 6 lawyers, he did a little of everything, from tax to litigation to corporate to estate planning to family law. At that time, the office was open also 6.5 days a week. But Dad was home every night for dinner, and on Sunday in the summers, after he'd finished reading the advance sheets, he would take the 4 children to the Como Park Zoo. I don't know how he did it, but he also found time to be active in the Jewish community, including at Mount Zion Temple and the St. Paul Federation, and in the general community. He was a member of the Board of Visitors at Columbia Law School. He was on the board at the Summit School and helped orchestrate the merger with SPA, and then continued on the board of the combined school. He was on the board of other community organizations too, including the Ordway, the Minnesota Orchestra, and McAllister College. And when he wasn't on a board, he was always available when asked for advice. When the Cardozo Society started in the mid-1990s, he was the first St. Paul co-chair. It is clear that 3 traits distinguished and defined my father: his love of learning, his professionalism, and his community leadership. This award was created to honor and recognize a senior attorney or judge who, like my father, lived these traits, and to inspire the rest of us to find balance between the rigors of practice and participation in the Jewish and general communities. Tonight is the 24th year that this award has been given to a Twin City lawyer or judge who exemplifies these traits. Many of the past honorees are here tonight. Their names are in the program. You know or know of them. And their accomplishments as lawyers and their commitment as Jews to our local community, our national community, and to Israel helps define better what this award is all about. As you will hear in a few minutes in the video tributes to them, each of tonight's recipients is like the stars. You don't always see them, but you always know that they're there. Tonight it is my pleasure and honor to present this year's Sidney Barrows Award to Justin Perl and Jim Stein. I know my father would be honored to have their names linked to his. I want to draw your attention in the programs, as the 2 mayors have said. There is a proclamation from the mayor of Minneapolis for Justin and from the mayor of St. Paul for Jim, declaring today their special days. Justin is a longtime leader in Minneapolis. He began his career at Maslin Firm and stayed there for over 30 years before he left to join the nonprofit sector. I think the first time I was aware of Justin was back in the 1980s, and I raised this with him tonight, when he was trying to keep Bob Aronson in line, working with the Russian immigrants who had just come to the United States. And he was one of the people that would be at the JCC, and he'd have his table, and he would work with them. While at Maslin, Justin was very active with pro bono matters, including handling cases for the U.S. State Department, the American Civil Liberties Union of Minnesota. In 2014, he moved from the private practice to head up the litigation section at the Minnesota Legal Aid, where he stayed until Thursday night, when I think is his official retirement. But he's going to still be there as a volunteer. Among the other organizations that have benefited from his assistance are the ADATH, the Minneapolis Federation, Volunteers for Immigrants, Boulder Options, AmeriCorps, People Serving People, and the Jewish Family and Children's Service. Now for a tribute to Justin, please turn your attention to the screens.
Well, obviously he's very smart. He's very analytical. He's got an incredibly good demeanor, and he's very level. He doesn't fluctuate like a lot of lawyers do between, highs and lows. It's really good to have somebody even keeled to keep me and the rest of the team focused on
Wow. Well, thank you all very much, especially to Bob Barrows and the rest of the selection committee, as well as the Federation and the Cardozo Society for hosting this rather huge event. I'm used to juries of 6 people or 12. Congratulations to Jim and Jake and their families on their awards as well. I stand before you tonight deeply moved and profoundly grateful. Gratitude for the people who have helped guide me, for the lessons I have learned along the way, and for the opportunity to have spent my career pursuing justice. To be recognized for a career that has been above all else a privilege is a humbling experience. I want to begin by thanking both the individuals and organizations that made this evening and this award possible. My family, who has supported me on this journey, as well as my colleagues at Maslin and at Legal Aid. When I was young, my parents taught me to work hard, do well, and give back. These values were incorporated into the life that Lynn and I have built together. She's been along for this entire journey, over 40 years together, constantly reminding me to be nice, even in the adversarial world of litigation. Lynn is the heart and soul of our family. I'm beyond lucky to have her as a partner, and I would not be here without her. That's also true of our kids, who you just heard from. Alex is an extraordinary person, a middle school math teacher who has helped students from many different backgrounds do their very best. In fact, she's pushed me to do the same while helping me on these very remarks tonight. And Philip, who researches ways to treat PTSD and depression with psychedelics, is also an amazing person. He may be a man of few words, but they're always very thoughtful. And as you heard, when he heard I had a job offer from Legal Aid, he was instrumental in persuading me to invest my energy, commitment, and experience to do some good for those in need. So thank you guys for all the support through all those long nights, tough cases, and extended travel away from home. Second, I wish to thank my colleagues at Maslin who are here tonight. When I began my legal career at Maslin, I had no idea where the road would take me. What I learned over the years was that the law was not just a job, it was a calling. For 31 years, Maslin gave me the opportunity to hone my skills, to advocate for our clients, and to learn from some of the brightest legal minds I have ever encountered. Those years taught me that the law is not merely about contracts, litigation, and statutes. It is about fairness, justice, and people. So please indulge me while I name just a few of those people, including the person I worked with every day, Amy Knott, my assistant at Maslin, who always knew what I needed before I could even think to ask for it. And of course, Marvin Borman, who some of you knew, one of the firm's founding partners who was willing to hire me. Marvin was the first recipient of the Barrows Lifetime Commitment Award and a very special person. He would always take the new lawyers out to lunch when we were working on the weekends. Nothing fancy, as I'm sure some of you recall. I think it was usually a bowl of soup. But a gesture to let us know that we were partners in this journey, even though we were just brand new lawyers. I've done my best to follow in Marvin's footsteps. On my first day at Maslin, I was assigned a few cases from incredible mentors who have become lifelong friends. Bill Pentelovich, who is here tonight, a prior recipient of this award, assigned me one of those cases. I remember it like yesterday, but I'll spare you on the details. Suffice it to say, Bill modeled how to be well-prepared and quick on your feet. And as many who have worked with Bill, he also taught us that words matter, even though he used that famous red pen to strike many of them from my draft briefs. That same day, I was given 2 other cases, one from Chad Quaitons, who is here tonight, and another from Gary Haugen. Both of them modeled that the legal profession is not merely a job, but a duty to uphold justice, equality, and the rule of law. And they showed me how to be a mensch while in the throes of litigation. I'm so fortunate to have had them as mentors as well. Of course, that list is not exhaustive, As I learned from several others, many of whom are here in this room tonight, I wish I could individually acknowledge everyone at Maslin, because I was extremely fortunate to have incredible mentors, colleagues, and experiences throughout my career. Maslin is my second family, so thank you. But as you heard, after a little more than 3 decades, I found myself drawn to a different kind of legal work, one that spoke to the deepest values that have guided my life. I took the leap to work at Legal Aid, where I spent the last 10 years working to ensure that justice is not reserved for those who can afford it, but is available to all who need it. As hard as it was to leave Maslin, working at Legal Aid has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. There is no greater honor than using the skills we have to help others. So you may not know this, but Jim and I are actually on the clock tonight. So before the music starts, I just want to share some Jewish concepts that are not only near and dear to me, but I think have guided me to this evening. In Deuteronomy, we are given a simple but urgent command: tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice, thou shalt pursue. The repetition of the word tzedek, justice, is no accident. It is a call to action for relentless pursuit. Justice does not happen on its own. It requires effort, commitment, and above all else, action. It requires us to pursue it not just in the courtroom, but in our communities and in our daily lives. Another key Jewish value that has guided me is tikkun olam, or repairing the world. Despite skipping out of Hebrew school whenever I could, the concept of repairing the world still stuck with me. And I was given many opportunities to practice it. At Maslin, as Bob mentioned, I was encouraged to embody tikkun olam by doing pro bono work with Soviet immigrants, taking on international child abduction cases from the Justice Department, and doing other work in the Jewish and secular communities. And later, I was able to expand those efforts with the passionate staff at Legal Aid who are here tonight, who try every day to make a difference in the lives of our clients by getting them justice and fairness they so much deserve. Thanks. I believe with all my soul that we should do what we can to make our world better for one another, but I grapple with the fact that no one person can repair it all. However, it was my colleagues at Legal Aid who recently reminded me that there is Jewish wisdom around this struggle as well. In Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, we are taught, it is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. The work of justice is never complete. There will always be another case. There will always be another client in need, another battle to fight. But we do it because it matters. We do it because every step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward a better world. Tonight, as I stand here receiving this incredible honor, I do so not as a reflection of my own accomplishments, but as a tribute to the friends, mentors, and colleagues who have guided me, the clients who have trusted me, and my family who has stood beside me. If I've been able to make a difference, it is because I've been surrounded by people who believe, as I do, that justice is worth fighting for. So I conclude with deep appreciation, but also with a challenge to us all. May we never tire in the pursuit of justice. May we remember that while we may not finish the work, we must always strive to move it forward. And may we continue to build a legal system and a world that truly embodies the principle of tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Thank you.
Jim Stein has been a longtime leader in St. Paul. Like Justin, he started practicing law and then got a bigger call for social justice. He practiced law for 40 years, including at the Hessian McKay Soderberg firm, where he chaired the litigation committee. He was the general counsel at State Farm Mutual Insurance Company in St. Paul, joined the general counsel's office at the St. Paul Companies, and finished his active practice of law with Leonard Street and Dinard. He was also served as a volunteer and leader on numerous boards, including 3 years as president of the St. Paul Jewish Federation. He was the first executive director at Nahama, the Jewish response to disaster. He was active in Cardozo, including as the original coordinator for recruiting and assigning dates for lawyers to work in the legal clinic initiated by Cardozo. Jim was also among the first cohort at the Harry K. Foundation and has been a member of its board for a number of years. He is a board member of too many organizations to mention all of them, but they do include the Temple of Aaron, Sholem Alliance, Jewish Vocational Service, and of course the St. Paul Federation. For a tribute to Jim, I want to direct your attention to the screens, please.
You know, Jim has always really been interested in community organizations and community activities. One of his pride in talking about his youth is that he was an Eagle Scout, and I think that's something that is one of the triggers that says, you know, you're working and serving the community with whatever you're doing.
Knowing Jim for all these years, I consider him not only First of all, everything you heard were lies. But let me start by saying congrats to my co-honorees tonight, and to thank the federations and the staff who have done an excellent job in planning tonight and coming up with it. Thanks everybody. Spring is a time of transition and renewal. In 1997, I'd been practicing law for over 20 years. The work was meaningful, and I found it satisfying. But that April, everything shifted. As you heard, we got a call. The Red River had flooded Grand Forks, North Dakota. The damage was catastrophic. My wife's hometown, the community where she grew up, and where we were married, was underwater. My daughter Michelle and I traveled to see for ourselves. What we found was heartbreaking. The city looked like a war zone. People's lives, their furniture, books, and photos were piled in heaps on the curb, waiting for the garbage trucks. We didn't have a plan, just a deep need to help. Our first stop was the synagogue, the one where Linda and I had stood under the chuppah. That's where we ran into Steve Lear. Steve, who was in the first Harry K. leadership cohort with me, had just founded, as you heard, Nechama Jewish Response to Disaster. It felt like Beshert. We rolled up our sleeves and got to work. Nechama's first official deployment. We cleaned basements, caked in mud, including the synagogue. We hauled out ruined furniture. At one house, Linda's aunt's, we had to deal with a chest freezer filled with rotting kosher meat. It was messy, it was humbling, it was holy work. We helped Jews and non-Jews alike. Often we were the first Jews these folks had ever met. And here's the thing. Even after decades in private practice, national antitrust work, and in-house counsel roles, this experience felt like something entirely different. It stirred something in me. It pushed through my old boundary as a lawyer and made me want to do more. That trip to Grand Forks, and others like it, launched what I now call my second career. A new chapter, one focused not just on community service, but on reimagining what Judaism could look like in the 21st century. It was my pivot, and it's something I share with Justin. At some point, we both changed course. He left Maslin to work with legal aid. I stepped into what I call disruptively innovative Jewish organizations. That pivot lit a fire. I remember going to a Jewish book event at the St. Paul JCC. I looked around and realized I hardly knew anyone in the room. And I'd been president of the St. Paul Federation. I'd sat on synagogue and Jewish community boards for years. It hit me. There are thousands of Jews who identify deeply with being Jewish, but who feel alienated from Jewish institutions. They weren't joining synagogues or federations. They weren't giving to Jewish causes, but they were searching for meaning, for connection, for relevance. That realization, paired with my time in the first Harry K. cohort, cracked things open for me. I went on to lead Healing Hands for Haiti and then Nechama. I brought my legal background into a whole new arena, helping to build new pathways for meaningful Jewish engagement. I started asking myself a big question: why be Jewish? In 2013, I wrote a book exploring that very question. And I got involved with organizations that are pushing boundaries. Judaism Unbound in Chicago, Macomb Community in Philadelphia, Big Ten Judaism in New York, and TC Jewfolk here and in Cincinnati. These groups are bold, inventive, and they are reimagining Judaism from the ground up. And closer to home, I helped recruit and coordinate Cardozo Society lawyers to volunteer at the St. Paul Legal Aid Clinic. I continue to serve on the board of the Harry K. Charitable Foundation, and now we're in the early stages of planning a Twin Cities Jewish Arts Conference set for 2026. Throughout all of this, one thing has grounded me: community. Jewish community is at the heart of everything I do. And for me, that heartbeat begins at home, with my wife Linda, our children Michelle, Lisa, and Daniel, and our 5 beautiful grandchildren. They are my foundation, my inspiration, and my greatest joy. I'm deeply grateful to my friend Alan Milovitz for his support, his friendship, and for making sure I was ready for tonight. Alan, thank you. I'm also grateful to my friends and co-volunteers whose own accomplishments have inspired me. Mazel tov to my co-honoree, Justin. Your work is a model of purpose and integrity. You remind us of what it means to lead with heart and principle. As I look back on a long and meaningful legal career, from private practice to in-house counsel, from courtroom to community, I'm struck with one truth. The law gave me tools, Judaism gave me direction. I've spent my life trying to use those tools, not just to win cases, but to build something lasting, something rooted in our values, our people, and our future. Being a lawyer has been a great privilege. Being part of the Jewish community has been a blessing. And being honored here tonight among friends, family, and colleagues is truly humbling. Thank you for this honor, for this community, and for walking the path with me.
Thanks, everyone. Just want to wish a final mazel tov to tonight's honorees, Jake, Jim, and Justin. Tonight's dinner highlights how truly inspiring our community of Jewish attorneys and allies are. Together, we can and are making a huge difference. Thank you all for the incredible contributions you've made to make tonight possible and for supporting the Minneapolis and St. Paul Jewish Federations. Thanks and have a great night.